baby. That's right, guys. Car Guy Jake with another edition of Live on the Drive, and I'm ready to go. Listen, guys, I want you to know I am here to pass on something motivational, inspirational, or spiritual to help you guys where I have been helped. All right, and just because you come to a realization of something doesn't mean that you have fixed it, okay? What it means is you realize it. You don't fix it until you start putting action behind it. Action behind it is the only way to help you guys, to help yourself get better, all right? So, that being said, I'm going to talk a little bit about people actually listen to respond. 98% of the time, they do not listen to understand what you're saying. And hold on a second, I'm trying to figure out this. The air conditioning's crazy today. Let's just turn it off. There we go. But most of the time, people listen to understand. They do not listen to they listen to respond. They do not listen to understand. But what does that mean? That means when somebody's interrupting you, bing, hey, I just wanted to tell you, this is going on and da 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 da. Whoa, that's not what da 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 da. If they're not listening to understand, they cannot truly understand what you're saying. So, but people are so defensive. People are so just want to make sure they prove themselves. This is it. And they get caught up in that rather than truly understanding what the other person is trying to say. They just get so caught up and they don't even realize that maybe my perspective is a little bit off, or maybe I should just respect this person enough to listen to them and respect this person enough to actually hear what they have to say. It's too many times people interrupt you when you're speaking, and for me and and realistically anybody, the biggest part of that is that I don't respect you enough to hear what you have to say. I'm more important, and I'm right, and I'm going to say whatever I want to say, even though you're trying to talk. Well, what happens is that person eventually, after that's happened, so many times, that sun blinded me this morning. After that happens so many times, the person shuts down, or the person gets angry very quickly, and it happens to me. It happens to me all the time. That's a big pet peeve of mine, is that if I'm trying to talk to you and you just constantly interrupt me, it's hurtful to me. It is. It's very hurtful. So then I respond, and how I respond to that, a lot of times I just shut down. Okay, roger that, you're right. But sometimes I respond in anger, because the person I'm trying to talk to, a lot of times it's loved ones, Your loved ones, the people that you love the most, are the ones that don't want to listen to you. My family doesn't support me on social media a lot of times as much as my fans do, as much as my, the Car Guy Jake advocates and, things like that. Just the same way, your family is very familiar to you, and your family is going to interrupt you a lot of times because they want to be right. A lot of times, people would much rather be right and lose than to be wrong and win. It's so crazy, and it's one of those problems that is out there with everybody. A lot of times people they don't even think about this, but if you don't allow that other person to speak, just speak. How could you ever understand what they're trying to say? It's such a hard situation, because you want to get out what you have to say, but you want to give them their piece, so to speak, and And the Native Americans, they found a way, a lot of times people don't know, they see it in movies or whatever, but Native Americans, they used to have battles, they used to fight each other in different tribes and, this and that and the other. But when they would come together as chiefs, they would smoke a peace pipe, right? So the mentality of that was not that they were, smoking, but the person that had, the chief that had the peace pipe, was the only one in that group that was allowed to speak. Why is that? Well, if you're given a full opportunity to truly convey what you're trying to say, and you can hold on to that peace pipe until you feel like you have been heard and that the person that is listening understands, then you feel fully validated, right? Otherwise, every time you try to speak, someone interrupts you, you don't feel respected, you don't feel loved, you don't feel validated, you don't feel heard and understood. So people are basing their decision, and they're basing their idea or their perception on something that was completely wrong because they didn't allow you to finish what you were trying to say. They just heard two things and ran off like, oh, yeah, no, you need to stop that. And yeah, they might not say the words, oh, you need to stop that, but by interrupting someone while they're trying to speak, it's telling that person, listen, I don't care what you have to say. I don't want to hear what you have going on. This is a pet peeve of mine that I have had for years. Good morning, Eric. Good to see you watching. Sorry, I was driving. I couldn't really see. But this is something that people get wrong all the time in everyday conversations and in conversations where it's a meaningful and impactful conversation. It could be about anything. It could be about, what time a store opens, or it could be about, your marriage and how you feel like you're checked out because that other person is not, listening to you. It could be anything, it could be anything in life, but people interrupt you and people don't allow you to speak. A lot of times the feelings that you have, you are left up to your own accord, and then they have an incorrect perception of what you were trying to say because they interrupted you and they didn't even allow you to finish your thought. It's so crazy, So I challenge everyone out there, stop today and listen. Y'all know I'm Car Guy Jake, so put your ears in gear and put your mouth in neutral. Put your mouth in neutral long enough to put your ears in gear and listen, truly actively listen to the other person enough so that you can understand what they're trying to convey. It's a very simple concept. It's just most of us get it wrong. And it's been done to me so much over the years. I find myself doing it too. I want to be heard. And I feel like the only way I can be heard is by forcing myself in there. And it's terrible. I shouldn't do it. No one else should either. But today I challenge you guys. All right, so put your mouth in neutral long enough to put your ears in gear and listen to the other person and what they're trying to say. I don't get a lot, y'all know I'm an Army veteran, I'm a proud American, but I don't get a political a lot, but I want you to understand that is a common problem with today's society as well, in our government and in our day-to-day actions, whatever side you're on, the left, the right, in the middle, whatever. People do not allow the other person to speak so that then they can understand. They're constantly over talking them or yelling at them or this or that or the other, and you shouldn't do that. You should actually listen to the other person's point of view. So I'm challenging all of you guys today, mouth in neutral, ears in gear. Listen until you understand completely what the other person is trying to say before you respond to to what they're saying. Because how could you respond to something you haven't heard completely? You know, it's like getting an email or a text message and only reading the first 4 words and then responding to those first 4 words, not the full text message or the full email. It just doesn't make sense, you know? So today, stop, slow down, listen, and remember, Jesus loves you more than anything, and Car Guy Jake loves you too. Y'all have a blessed day.